But to really understand the power of controlling what you can, let me tell you about Andy Grove and Intel. In 1985, Intel was facing an existential crisis. For years, they had dominated the memory chip market, but Japanese competitors were quickly eroding their position. Despite investing millions of dollars in efficiency improvements and aggressive pricing, Intel's market share continued to decline. One January day, Grove, who was then the president of Intel, walked into CEO Gordon Moore's office, exhausted from months of wrestling with this challenge. He asked a question that would alter the course of business history. If we got kicked out and the board brought in a new CEO and president, what would they do? Moore's response was immediate and clarifying. They would get us out of memories. There was a profound silence before Grove replied, well, why shouldn't you and I walk out the door, come back, and do it ourselves? This moment perfectly illustrates the essence of control. Grove recognized he couldn't control the global memory chip market or Japanese competition. What he could control was Intel's strategic direction. This is the Future Ready Advisor, a show about transforming your financial advisory practice. I'm your host, Sam Sivarajan, a wealth management consultant, behavioral scientist, and keynote speaker. In this podcast, I dive deep into the real challenges advisors face and bring you insightful conversations with top industry experts. Together, we'll explore practical strategies grounded in behavioral science to help you better serve your clients, optimize your time, and build a future-ready practice. Hi, everyone. I'm Sam Sivarajan, and welcome to the Future Ready Advisor podcast. Today is a different episode. It's just you and me, my first solo episode. And I'm doing it now for a reason, because of what is happening in the markets and the broader economy. In the few days after Trump's Liberation Day, global equities were rocked by panic. The S&P fell 6% in a single day and over 9% in the week, its steepest weekly drop since 2020. The Dow dropped over 2,200 points on one day alone and almost 8% for the week. The Nasdaq plunged 10% over the course of the week, officially entering bear market territory. And in all, almost $5 trillion in market value was wiped out in just a couple of days. So why? Well, obviously escalating trade tensions, tariff announcements, political brinksmanship. But here's the thing. These market moves aren't just about economics. They're about uncertainty and how we deal with it. In my recent article in the Globe and Mail, I explored this dynamic, how markets tend to react more strongly to geopolitical threats, the possibility of war, tariffs, recession, than to the actual events. Because when risk is undefined, our brains go into overdrive. Now, behavioral finance has an explanation for some of this, and this is loss aversion at one level. We feel the pain of loss about twice as strongly as the pleasure of a gain. And when uncertainty rises, that pain gets exaggerated. But we've seen this before. During Brexit, the 2018 trade war, the 2003 Iraq invasion, markets have dropped before the event and often recover when the event occurs. It's not that the situation has improved, but now the uncertainty has been removed. And your clients, they're not immune to that dynamic either. They read the headlines, they feel the fear, and they ask questions like, am I going to be okay? I remember a moment like that vividly. It was 2008 during the Great Recession. A client, let's call him Richard, walked into my office after his portfolio had dropped over 30%. He shoved a pile of CNBC printouts across the desk and said, should we sell everything? What if this time it's different? And the honest answer? I didn't know. But what Richard really needed wasn't a prediction. He needed a framework, something to help him make clear-headed decisions in a chaotic world, a world of change, a world of uncertainty. And uncertainty is simply one form of change, perhaps the most challenging form because it's unplanned and usually unwelcome. Today we'll talk about a number of frameworks that can help you master all types of change, whether expected or unexpected. Over the years, I've developed a structure I call the CASE Foundation. It helps advisors, investors, leaders, really all of us, navigate uncertainty by focusing on what really matters. And I'll be candid. This isn't just a professional challenge. It's the defining challenge of our time. How to lead ourselves, our teams, and our clients through increasing unpredictability. Let's get into it. The case foundation has four parts to give you a solid footing to deal with uncertainty. C stands for control. Know what you can change. A stands for align. Focus on your priorities. S stands for span, balancing the future and the present. And E stands for establish. Measure what matters. So let's dig into each one of these in more detail. So control. The first pillar is control. When markets shake and clients panic, our instinct is to respond with certainty, to calm fears with forecasts. But here's the truth. Certainty is a trap. What your clients need isn't answers. They need clarity. This is where the dichotomy of control comes in. It is a concept from Stoic philosophy that applies beautifully to our profession. You can categorize almost everything into spheres that are in your control and those outside of your control. Think about it in three buckets. The first is where you have direct control. That's your behavior, your communications, your mindset. The second is where you have indirect influence. That's over client decisions, team dynamics, and partner engagement. The third bucket is where you have no control. And that would be things like what's happening in the market, interest rates, regulations, geopolitical events. In uncertain times, many advisors spend too much time reacting to what they can't control. They chase headlines, issue market commentaries, and try to outguess the central banks. But the most effective advisors shift the conversation to where they do have agency. Take Sarah, an advisor I coached during COVID. Her first instinct was to email clients with market predictions. But after applying this framework, she changed course. She instead sent personalized video updates, built crisis resistant withdrawal strategies, and created a consistent weekly communication rhythm. And the result was powerful. She retained all of her clients and gained over 15 qualified referrals during one of the most volatile market periods of the decade. But to really understand the power of controlling what you can, let me tell you about Andy Grove and Intel. In 1985, Intel was facing an existential crisis. For years, they had dominated the memory chip market, but Japanese competitors were quickly eroding their position. Despite investing millions of dollars in efficiency improvements and aggressive pricing, Intel's market share continued to decline. One January day, Grove, who was then the president of Intel, walked into CEO Gordon Moore's office, exhausted from months of wrestling with this challenge. He asked a question that would alter the course of business history. If we got kicked out and the board brought in a new CEO and president, what would they do? Moore's response was immediate and clarifying. They would get us out of memories. There was a profound silence before Grove replied, well, why shouldn't you and I walk out the door, come back, and do it ourselves? This moment perfectly illustrates the essence of control. Grove recognized he couldn't control the global memory chip market or Japanese competition. What he could control was Intel's strategic direction. Rather than fighting an unwinnable battle, he focused his energy on a domain where Intel could lead, microprocessors. The decision to exit the memory business wasn't easy. It meant abandoning the product that had built the company. But by concentrating on what they could control, their product focus, their R&D investment, and their internal culture, Intel transformed itself into a global microprocessor powerhouse. I see the same principle play out with financial advisors every day. When markets turn volatile, average advisors focus their energy on areas outside their control, predicting corrections, timing the market, guessing the moves of the Fed. But exceptional advisors redirect their attention to what they can influence, how they frame market events in terms of their clients' plans, the quality and consistency of their communication, the clarity of their advice and recommendations, and the emotional support they provide during difficult times. I witnessed this contrast dramatically during the 2008 financial crisis. In our firm, we had two types of advisors. The first group spent their days glued to CNBC, obsessively discussing market theories, and trying to predict recovery timelines. Their client conversations centered on market predictions and portfolio adjustments. The second group took a fundamentally different approach. They acknowledged the market reality, but pivoted to what they could control: client communication, systematic rebalancing, and financial plan readjustments. In meetings, they focused less on market forecasts and more on ensuring clients understood their actual financial position and what concrete steps made sense given their specific circumstances. The difference in outcomes was striking. The first group saw significant client attrition, about 30% over the crisis period. The second group not only retained clients, but grew their books through referrals, even as markets plummeted. What's remarkable is that this pattern repeats in every crisis. I saw it again during Brexit, during the 2018 correction, and during COVID. The advisors who thrive aren't those with the best market predictions. They're those who understand the boundary between what they can and cannot control. Think about your own practice for a moment. How much mental and emotional energy do you spend on factors outside your control? How might redirecting that energy to what you can influence transform your client relationships and business results? Before your next big decision or client meeting, make a quick 3 column list. What can you control? What can you influence? And what's out of your hands? Then lead from the first 2 columns. That's where trust is built. After control, the next element is align, focusing on your priorities. Here, I want to share a story from my time building a brand new wealth platform at Manulife just after the Great Recession. In the aftermath of that market bloodbath, it was clear, even among high net worth and ultra high net worth investors, that fear had taken a hold. People with multi generational wealth were still asking the same fundamental question: are we going to be okay? And that became our North Star. So we built the platform from the client's perspective, not the markets. We introduced a goals based investing model. Instead of a single all in portfolio, we created distinct portfolios tied to the client's specific goals: one for retirement income, one for philanthropic giving, one for short term liquidity, one for legacy and wealth transfer. As a result, the clients could see clearly how each goal was progressing, regardless of what was happening in the market. That transparency and alignment changed everything. Clients stayed committed. We saw a greater share of wallet and more proactive referrals than I'd ever experienced before. Why? Because the plan wasn't about me beating the market. It was about meeting their life goals. This is what alignment looks like in practice: aligning every decision, every conversation, every portfolio with what truly matters. Let me share a powerful corporate example of alignment that transformed an entire organization. It's the story of Patagonia and its founder, Yvon Chouinard. In 1973, Patagonia faced a critical inflection point. The company's primary product, steel pythons for climbing, generated about 70% of its revenues. But Chouinard had made a troubling discovery. These same pythons were permanently scarring the rock faces he loved. He faced a significant dilemma: continue selling a profitable product that damaged the environment, or risk the company's financial stability by abandoning it. For many business leaders, this would have been an agonizing choice. But Chouinard's clarity about what truly mattered made the decision straightforward, although not easy. Patagonia, Patagonia phased out the Python business entirely and invested in developing alternative climbing equipment that wouldn't damage the rocks. This decision, driven by alignment with core values rather than just short term profit, set the trajectory for Patagonia's future. When facing rising cotton prices and quality issues in 1996, they made another bold move, transitioning entirely to organic cotton despite higher costs. While conventional business wisdom would have predicted disaster, sales increased by over 25% following the change. Patagonia's journey continued with initiatives like the Footprint Chronicles, which dramatically streamlined their supply chain, and the provocative "Don't Buy This Jacket" campaign in 2011. On paper, encouraging customers not to purchase your product seems like business suicide. And yet, revenue increased by 30%, driven by deeper customer loyalty to the brand's authentic values. The culmination came in 2022 when Chouinard transferred ownership of the $3 billion company to a trust and nonprofit dedicated to fighting climate change. Throughout this remarkable journey, what guided Patagonia wasn't maximizing quarterly profits or market share, but deep alignment with their core purpose. In our profession, this principle of alignment is equally powerful. I've seen it transform advisory practices from transactional businesses into mission driven organizations with profound client impact. Think about your own practice for a moment. In the daily rush of market updates, client demands, and compliance requirements, it's easy to lose sight of what truly matters. We get caught in what I call the activity trap, being busy with urgent tasks while neglecting the important ones. You can create alignment using what I call the 4 buckets method. It's a simple way to sort every task or initiative that crosses your desk. Here's how it works. Take out a sheet of paper and draw a line down the middle, then another line across the middle. Label that top half high impact and bottom half lower impact. Label the left side high urgency and the right side lower urgency. Now you have 4 buckets or quadrants for sorting your activities. In the top left bucket are your critical activities, things that are both urgent and high impact. These might include addressing a major client concern or responding to a regulatory change. These demand your immediate attention. In the top right bucket are your strategic priorities, high impact but less urgent tasks like developing a new service offering or creating a client education program. These need dedicated, protected time on your calendar. The bottom left holds your necessary routines, urgent but low impact tasks like routine reporting or basic administrative work. These should be systematized or delegated wherever possible. And finally, in the bottom right are your energy drains, activities that are neither urgent nor high impact, like constantly checking market updates or attending unfocused networking events. These should be ruthlessly eliminated. I work with the founder of a rapidly growing e-commerce retail business. Let's call him Mark, who applied this framework when he found himself drowning in operational chaos. Despite rapid growth in 2 years, Mark was working 70-hour weeks and constantly feeling behind. His leadership meetings have become marathon sessions covering everything from inventory management to visual merchandising to staff training, regardless of which issues truly demanded his attention. The business was growing, but Mark was burning out. His phone buzzed constantly with texts from department managers asking for decisions. His evenings disappeared into spreadsheets. The very success he had created was consuming him. Using the 4 buckets method, Mark transformed not just his schedule, but the entire rhythm of his business. First, he restructured his leadership meetings around the 2 most pressing business priorities each week, rather than attempting to cover every operational aspect. This single change reduced meeting time 60% while dramatically increasing team alignment and execution speed. These systems, once established, largely ran themselves with minimal oversight, freeing up nearly 15 hours each week for strategic thinking. Third, he eliminated his energy drains completely, including a detailed daily sales report that nobody used effectively, and several local business committee memberships that generated goodwill, but no actual customers. And fourth, with all of this, he had now time to spend on his strategic priorities. The transformation was remarkable. Within 2 months, Mark had reduced his work week to 50 hours while simultaneously accelerating the company's growth. What's more, his team reported higher satisfaction and clearer direction. By focusing intensely on what truly mattered, product differentiation and customer experience, Mark's business increased sales by 18% that year, while successfully opening 2 new geographic markets. His experience reveals a powerful truth about alignment. When we identify what truly matters and focus our energy there, we don't just work more efficiently, we create more significant impact with less effort. The power of alignment isn't just about efficiency, it's about impact. When you're crystal clear on what truly matters, you bring a focused energy to your work that clients can feel and respond to. Are your client meetings centered on headlines or outcomes? Start with the goal, then map back to the plan. It changes the energy in the room. After control and align, the third element in the case foundation is span, the ability to hold multiple time horizons in your view. Now, advisors are relatively unique in this respect. We help clients manage today's concerns while planning for years ahead. But in volatile times, it's easy to get stuck in the now. I learned this the hard way with a client named Tom, who had just sold his business. He wanted stability, so he came with a portfolio focused on short term income. It was working until market volatility returned and he realized he needed help. When we chatted, I pointed out that he had underplanned for longevity. Tom expected to live 30 years in retirement, but his portfolio was only built for 15. That experience changed how I approach planning. I now use what I call the time horizons method. Picture three concentric circles, each representing a different time frame. The innermost circle is your now circle, covering the present to 1 year out. For clients, this includes current income needs, tax situations, and immediate financial concerns. For your practice, it's current client service and regulatory compliance. These are the issues right in front of you. The middle circle is your next circle, spanning 1 to 3 years ahead. This includes preparing clients for upcoming life transitions or anticipated financial changes. For your practice, it might be developing new service offerings or technology capabilities. These are the bridges you're building to the future. The outer circle is your future circle, looking 3 to 10 years or more into the distance. This includes clients' retirement sustainability, legacy planning, and long term wealth transfer. For your practice, it might be succession planning or positioning for industry evolution. These are the destinations you're working toward. Jennifer, an advisor I mentor, used this model with a particularly reactive client. By organizing meetings around these three timelines, she shifted the client's mindset from market anxiety to longer term perspective. The anxious calls stopped and trust deepened. To truly understand the power of spanning these multiple time horizons, let me share the story of John Mackey and the Whole Foods market. In 2017, Mackey faced perhaps the most consequential decision of his career. After nearly 4 decades building Whole Foods into a revolutionary force in American retail, proving that purpose and profit could coexist, he stood at a crossroads. The company's stock had fallen sharply. Activist investors were demanding radical changes, and the very values that had defined Whole Foods now seemed to threaten its survival. What makes Mackey's story so instructive is how he balanced immediate pressures with long term vision. Faced with relentless demands to boost short term performance, many CEOs would have abandoned their principles or clung rigidly to the past. Instead, Mackey made what many considered unthinkable: the decision to agree to sell Whole Foods to Amazon for almost $14 billion. Now, this wasn't just a financial transaction. It was a master class in spanning time horizons. Mackey understood that preserving Whole Foods' core values, commitment to quality, sustainability, and customer well being, required embracing significant change. The partnership with Amazon allowed Whole Foods to retain its brand identity and principles while gaining access to technological innovation and distribution capabilities that would ensure its long term relevance. In essence, Mackey was balancing three distinct time horizons. The immediate horizon demanded financial stability and protection from activist investors who might dismantle the company's core mission. The mid range horizon required adapting to changing consumer behaviors, particularly the shift toward online grocery shopping. And the long term horizon focused on ensuring that Whole Foods' values and impact would endure for decades to come. What's remarkable is that Mackey didn't sacrifice any of these horizons, but finding a partner that shared a vision for long term innovation while respecting Whole Foods' identity he secured all three. This capacity to span multiple time perspectives isn't just valuable for CEOs, it's essential for financial advisors. We're constantly helping clients balance immediate concerns such as market volatility and cash flow needs with long term goals, their retirement security, or legacy planning. When we fail to span these horizons effectively, we are creating plans that may work perfectly for today, but collapse under tomorrow's pressures. I see this principle play out in every aspect of financial planning. Take retirement income strategies, for instance. An approach that maximizes current income while ignoring longevity risk might seem brilliant for the first decade, but prove disastrous in later years. Conversely, a plan focused exclusively on long term growth might create so much short term volatility that clients abandon it during market corrections. The art of spanning these horizons requires both technical expertise and psychological insight. It's about helping clients understand how today's decisions shape tomorrow's possibilities, while ensuring that long term planning doesn't ignore immediate realities. One advisor I worked with, we'll call her Elena, transformed our practice by explicitly incorporating this spanning approach into her client meetings. She divided each annual review into three distinct segments. In the now section, she addressed immediate concerns, recent market performance, current cash flow, and tax planning opportunities. In the next segment, she focused on anticipated life changes in the coming 1 to 3 years, children starting college, planned home renovations, potential career transitions. Finally, in the future conversation, she explored long term aspirations and progress towards those goals, retirement readiness, legacy planning, and wealth transfer strategies. This structured approach completely reframed client conversations. Rather than getting stuck in either short term performance concerns or vague long term goals, clients could see how each time horizon connected to the others. The result? Deeper engagement, more thoughtful decision making, and greater commitment to the overall financial plan. Structure your next review meeting around the three horizons. It moves the conversation from performance to purpose. The final element of the case foundation is establish, measuring what matters. As finance professionals, we love metrics. But here's the thing: AUM, revenue, and headcount are lagging indicators. They tell you what's already happened, not what's working now or what will truly drive sustainable growth. To fully understand the power of establishing the right metrics, let me share a personal experience that reveals how measuring the wrong things can lead an entire organization astray. A few years ago, I was asked to help transform a wealth management firm that was facing a puzzling dilemma. On paper, they were thriving. Their assets under management had grown an impressive 30% over the previous 2 years. Their advisor headcount was up, and their client acquisition numbers set new records each quarter. By conventional industry metrics, this was a success story. But beneath these glowing statistics lurked a troubling reality. Despite the substantial growth in AUM, their profitability was stagnant, even declining in certain quarters. The executive team was baffled. How could a business be simultaneously growing and struggling? When I arrived, the firm's always buzzed with activity. Advisors were constantly in motion, client meetings filled the calendar, and marketing events drew impressive crowds. But sitting in their management meeting, I noticed something revealing. Every discussion centered on asset gathering. The leadership team reviewed AUM growth by advisor, by team, by region, slicing the data in countless ways. Advisors who brought in the most assets received recognition and substantial bonuses. What was conspicuously absent from these conversations? Profitability. As I dug deeper, the pattern became clear. The firm's advisors, responding rationally to how they were measured and rewarded, had developed a nearly reflexive habit. They discounted their services, sometimes dramatically to win new clients. Why wouldn't they? The metric that determined their success and compensation was purely asset based. In their pursuit of those assets, advisors routinely slashed fees, waived planning charges, and threw in additional services at no cost. One senior advisor confided, "I know I'm practically giving away our services to land the big accounts, but that's what gets celebrated around here. Nobody asks about my margins. They just want to know my AUM." This wasn't merely a pricing problem. It was a measurement problem. The firm had created a culture where gathering assets trumped creating value, both for clients and for the business itself. They were measuring what was easy to track, not what truly mattered for sustainable success. The solution required courage. We needed to fundamentally change what the organization valued and tracked. In collaboration with the leadership team, we implemented what I call a values aligned scorecard. Instead of focusing solely on AUM, we started tracking two critical measures in tandem for each advisor: AUM and the discounts given per client. The results were immediate and revealing. Some advisors were routinely discounting their services by 30 to 40%, effectively giving away significant value with no strategic rationale. Others maintained healthy margins while still growing their client base, proving that discounting wasn't necessary to compete effectively. This simple measurement change sparked powerful conversations throughout the organization. For the first time, leadership could see the relationship between asset growth and profitability at a granular level. Advisors began discussing the value they provided rather than just the assets they gathered. We didn't eliminate AUM as a metric, it remained important. But by pairing it with discount tracking, we created a more complete picture of business health. Within 3 months, the firm's profitability improved dramatically. The average discount rate dropped from 27% to 12%, while client acquisition remained strong. In fact, many advisors reported more meaningful client conversations once they focused on articulating value rather than competing on price. By the 6 month mark, the firm's profitability had increased by over 20%, even though their AUM growth pace remained relatively constant. And something unexpected happened. Advisor satisfaction improved significantly. As one team member told me, I feel like a professional again, not just a salesperson. I'm having deeper conversations about what clients truly need instead of just trying to win their assets at any cost. I learned this lesson again in the most unexpected way through the disorienting fog of the pandemic. March 2020 arrived like a storm none of us saw coming. Overnight, my calendar of client meetings and pending deals disappeared. The carefully constructed rhythm of my professional life, the metrics I tracked, the goals I pursued, the success I measured, suddenly seemed hollow as the world grappled with questions far more fundamental than market performance. Sitting in my home office, surrounded by market reports and deal files, I found myself staring out the window at a neighborhood grown strangely quiet. The metrics that had always defined my professional life and work, client acquisition, business growth, revenue targets, felt oddly distant. In their place, new questions emerged. Was I truly serving my clients in the ways they needed most right now? Was I using this unexpected pause to deepen my knowledge and capacity? Was I finding meaning in my work beyond the traditional markers of success? This moment of reflection wasn't comfortable. Like many of us, I'd built my professional identity around certain measurable achievements. But the pandemic had stripped away the familiar context, forcing me to confront what truly mattered, both to me and those I served. The breakthrough came on a Tuesday morning Zoom call with a longtime client I'll call Elizabeth. She was a successful entrepreneur who had always been focused on business growth and financial metrics. But that day, she appeared on screen looking exhausted, her home office cluttered with evidence of her new remote work reality. I don't care about the acquisition, she said bluntly, talking about the deal we'd been working on for months. I care about knowing we're going to be okay, that my family has what we need, that my parents are secure, that we're making the right decisions in a world that suddenly feels completely unpredictable. Her words crystallized everything. In that moment, I realized I've been measuring aspects of my business that, while important, weren't what truly mattered to the people I served. That evening, I created another values aligned scorecard, a completely reimagined measurement system reflecting what genuinely mattered for me in this new reality. Instead of tracking only traditional performance metrics, I began measuring how many clients I personally checked in with, not just to discuss markets, but to listen to their concerns. How many educational resources had I created to address clients' evolving questions? How much time was I dedicating to deepening my knowledge and crisis planning? The quality and depth of my client conversations rated on a simple personal scale. As I shifted my attention to these new metrics, something remarkable happened. My client relationships deepened, conversations became more meaningful, and rather than feeling constantly behind, I experienced a renewed sense of purpose and clarity. The irony wasn't lost on me. By letting go of my fixation on traditional success metrics during a global crisis, I had actually positioned myself to be more valuable to my clients than ever before. Think about your own metrics for a moment. In this post pandemic world, do they still reflect what truly matters to your clients and to your deeper purpose? Or are you measuring what's always been measured simply because that's what the industry expects? Create your own values aligned scorecard. Move beyond the standard benchmarks to track what genuinely creates meaning. The depth of your client understanding, not just transaction frequency. Knowledge growth, not just revenue growth. Impact on client well being, not just impact on their portfolio. Moments of genuine connection, not just moments of service delivery. If you want clients to focus on what truly matters in uncertain times, you must first lead by measuring what matters to you. So, as we come to the end of our episode, where does that leave us? We're in a time of massive uncertainty. And if we're honest, it's most certainly not going away anytime soon. Whether it's market volatility, geopolitical threats, or the next unexpected crisis, we need to stop chasing certainty and start building capacity to maneuver and adapt. That's what the Case Foundation is all about. Control what's yours to lead, like Andy Grove focusing on microprocessors when he couldn't control the memory chip market. Align your work with what matters, like Patagonia making decisions based on environmental values, even when it meant abandoning profitable products. Span across short-term needs and long-term goals, like John Mackey balancing immediate market pressures with Whole Foods' enduring mission. Establish the right metrics to track true progress, avoiding that wealth business profitability crisis by measuring what truly creates value, your value-added scorecard, not just traditional performance indicators. This is the foundation for future-ready advisors, and it's just the beginning. In part 2 of this solo series, I'll introduce another framework, one that builds on case and helps you execute in real time. We'll explore the 3 A's of execution: assess, act, and adapt. Practical tools that transform how you respond to uncertainty in the moment. Both of these frameworks are battle tested approaches drawn from my decades in wealth management, investment banking, and studying how leaders navigate uncertainty. They'll help you develop what I call strategic fluidity, the ability to move with changes rather than being paralyzed by them. I dive much deeper into these concepts in my upcoming book, Change Mastery: How to Lead, Adapt, and Thrive in a World of Disruption. The book offers detailed exercises, decision tools, and implementation checklists designed specifically for professionals navigating complex, uncertain environments. If you'd like early access, behind the scenes content, and special launch offers, I'd love for you to join the insider list. Just head to lp.samsivarajan.com/change mastery. I'll be sure to include the link in the show notes below. Sign up to stay in the loop as we get closer to launch. You can also download from this site the Uncertainty Advantage Guide for free, which has some frameworks and checklists you can start applying immediately. In the meantime, I encourage you to start applying the Case Foundation today. Choose just one element, perhaps mapping your activities using the 4 buckets method, or restructuring your next meeting around the 3 time horizons. These small shifts can create remarkable changes in how you and your clients experience uncertainty. The future belongs to advisors who don't just survive in chaos, but thrive in it. With these frameworks, you're well on your way to becoming one of them. Thanks for joining me today. Until next time, stay grounded, stay focused, and stay future ready. You've been listening to the Future Ready Advisor. If you enjoyed the show, please leave a review on Apple Podcasts or a rating on Spotify, or share your feedback wherever you listen. Be sure to follow the podcast so you never miss an episode. For more insights on how to keep your practice future ready, visit www.samsivarajan.com. You can find the link on the show notes. There you'll find free tools and resources, along with exclusive bonus content from these podcasts. Thanks for tuning in, and I look forward to sharing more strategies with you in the next episode.